handle on that. With that said, let's check out your selection here, which is The Who. I Can't Explain, with an 18-year-old Keith Moon on drums. Now, you asked here, Keith considered one of the best rock drummers, but others say if he was in any other band, it would sound like it wouldn't work, right? That's obviously really early Who and Keith Moon. I believe they formed in 1964. I think the video said that they were 65. Just having a look at that original video. And Keith Moon was 18, or somewhere around there. He looks so young too in that video. This is a tricky one. I feel like there's probably going to be an evolution in his personality coming out in the playing. I always hear people saying that he doesn't play hi-hats. Well, he's got hi-hats there. Does he lose his hi-hats? Or does he have hi-hats, but he just doesn't ride on them? Does he just not play on them? So I've got a few questions about that, which I'm sure, again, are going to get answered during the week. There was a few things there that stand out to me, but they're not that unusual. It's probably quite an amateur, or let's call it a naive approach on the drums, or it's like a young person's approach on the drums to play a lot of drum fills. If you're not sure what a drum fill is, a lot of people watch my channel who are not drummers. Drum fills are the bits that basically fill in the gaps between sections or within the beats. You heard him there doing a lot of 16th note drum fills. Fairly repetitive type of fills, but I wouldn't say he's repeating himself over and over, but they're repetitive sort of ideas and repetitive subdivisions. I think what's unusual is the amount of fills. He's playing a lot of fills. So we've almost got this lead drummer thing going on. I won't go as far as to call it ego. Not yet, at least, as I don't know enough to say that. But it's almost like there's an excitement. There's an excitement, a hyperactivity in the drumming and in the person, in the player, that is, there's something in there that is making him do more. Now, it can propel the music. It can create a lot of momentum if you're good at it and if you're musical with it. And I believe he is musical with it. I think it's there for a reason. I think he is one of these people, he's one of these human beings that he is inside the music when he plays it. That's not an easy concept to explain or describe. I can't even really tell you what I mean by that. I just mean he is part of the music. He has inserted himself as a person within this music. He's not playing a drum part for a song. He is the drum part for the song. It's a different way of thinking of it. This normally happens with originals groups, can happen with covers or ensemble players, the great session legends. As I read on the previous video, one of his favorite drummers was Hal Blaine, who was a completely different character to Keith Moon, who's a very refined and very professional, sort of 12 hours a day in the studio, one of the most recorded drummers of all time. A real contrast, because both players are famous and well known for being inside the music, although from wildly different perspectives and wildly different approaches. So I'll just throw that out there. To try and answer your question, Chris Block, would he have worked in another band? I think so. There's nothing there that I think, especially style-wise for the era, for the 60s, and you've got this sort of, I don't know what do we even call this, 60s rock and roll sort of light approach, Beatles type stuff. Very, very short song. The song was under 2 minutes. I think he'd be considered a very, very competent drummer. If he's playing at that level, playing this type of stuff in the 60s, he would have been considered a very, very competent drummer to be playing like this. I'm not saying he wouldn't now, but I'm just trying to think, who his contemporaries were and who he could have potentially played for. There is an element of chaos already apparent in the style with the activity and the need for a lot of note density in the playing. This is a pretty simple 60s bubblegum-ish type song, and it's like he can't contain himself to playing the groove and then playing the occasional fill to take us into a section. He's got to constantly fill. He's constantly going around the drums, and he's riding on a crash. I don't know if that was a crash cymbal or a ride cymbal, but that's a loud part of the kit. That is a loud place to crash. And normally during the verses where there's a lot of words, we will ride on the hi-hats closed because it contains the sound and allows the vocals to really be heard. And then perhaps in the chorus where you get the sing-along part, that's where we might open it up and go to the ride, or maybe a crash ride. He's loud and crashing the whole way through, which is indicative of his style and his personality, I suppose. Fascinating